on to the main story of the day, the one that everybody's actually here for, which is Kensington Palace yesterday issued an official photograph of the Princess of Wales and her children to mark Mothering Sunday. Now, there's nothing unusual in that, but it turns out, rather late in the day, after newspapers and TV channels had all started publishing it, that the photo has been subject to digital manipulation. Dave, can you take us through this a bit? What is it about this apparently very happy, jolly photo where everyone's deliriously excited? What is it that's raised suspicions?
Well, this is absolute chaos. I mean, the picture was obviously issued with the, sort of show the family looking happy. The palace having made the unprecedented step of sort of issuing a statement last week, trying to put to bed some of the sort of conspiracy theories about Kate's health. And yeah, a closer look at the picture they issued yesterday, there's certainly some question marks about it. There's an issue, I think, around Charlotte's hands and around around her sleeve. Yeah, that's
yeah, you can see it there. So for those on podcasts, what we're looking at now is an image of Princess Charlotte's hand with a cardigan over it, in which part of the cardigan has been covered by the background behind the cardigan, and it looks really obviously weird. Plus, if you look behind that, the skirt where it goes into the bottom of the cardigan also looks slightly peculiar. There's definitely been some blurring done around there, isn't there, Dave?
That's right, yeah. And then on top of that, we've got, I think it looks like Prince George's hand. The focus on it looks slightly different. So it kind of looks like this is perhaps a different photo. This has been taken from a different frame than sort of some of the other aspects of that image.
Yeah, well, one of the things that strikes me there is that George has got his arms around Kate's neck and he's got his hands together in front of her, cuddling her, and his knuckle seems to have quite a little bit of light on it on the right-hand side there, whereas Charlotte's sitting in front of him, so it shouldn't have any light on it. You've also got Charlotte's skirt, which doesn't appear to be connected to her body there. I mean, there's loads of stuff going on. There's some things I suppose you could look at there and go, well, that is perhaps she's just sitting funny and the skirt just looks a bit odd. But then there's other bits of it you go, there's something. Why have you? And here we've got a photograph of Charlotte's hair, which it seems to have been just hacked off by well, frankly, me when I'm late for a school run, go just quickly, just cut it there, that'll do, kind of thing. And that doesn't happen to a princess's hair. She's got bits that are longer than other bits, and a bit that seems to have been hacked off, probably because it looks like something else was there originally, and it's just kind of been chunked there. I mean, this is how hair falls naturally over a shoulder like this, viewers. Podcasters going to have to imagine things. Whereas if you actually just cut it off there and then it doesn't. I suppose the question is, Dave, we've got a lot of these things that are a bit odd, but we've also got this fact that it was actually issued on Mothering Sunday, which can happen, but it's also usually when they issue an official photograph, they can issue it a bit sooner because to get in the Sunday papers, if that's the point of the damn photograph, or to on someone's birthday, that kind of thing. But there are a lot fewer staff knocking around on a Sunday for a Monday newspaper, aren't there?
That's right, yeah. And the picture agencies as well. I mean, obviously, it's it's quite telling that this took a few hours for some of these big picture agencies that would obviously you'd expect to be sort of taking a close look at this to sort of all collectively recognize that there was something wrong. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the kind of snap timing of the release of it, like you say, sort of with a bit more planning, you'd possibly expect that this would be a picture that would be sort of sent out widely under embargo or on a Saturday night and then could feature in the Sunday papers, sort of run big. So yeah, it was a snap release for a picture that was apparently taken last week.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's taken. I mean, you can see there in that picture of Charlotte's skirt, looks very odd on her right hip. You've got Kate, and Kate's not wearing her wedding or engagement rings. You've got George there with his fingers crossed. There's nothing here except questions to ask about whether all four people were in the photo at the same time and whether they were all as deliriously happy in the same shot. Now, it's entirely possible because it's really difficult, professionally speaking, to get four people all looking straight down the camera, all going, ha-ha, at the same time, as opposed to, blinking or looking the other way or, flicking their hair or something. And so it's possible perhaps they had, two or three people doing it right and one person blinking, and they decided to kind of smash two shots together. But the issue here, I suppose, isn't it? I mean, it wasn't our finest moment. Obviously, the picture did get through lots of newspaper picture desks, and I think it was the general public really on Twitter that started noticing there was things a bit amiss with it, which then raised concerns. Picture agencies then issued what's known as a kill notification, which is basically like a correction that you put out on the wires, and you say, "Don't use that one. It's a dodgy one." But generally speaking, newspapers don't like using digitally altered images, do we, Dave? Why not?
No, I mean, it's an issue of trust with the readers. When you put something out, the reader will expect to look at this and think this is an image that we're publishing with integrity. It's not been manipulated to make it appear in a different way. Sort of the scene that we photographed was true to what was what you see in the final image.
The camera doesn't lie. That's what we're that's what we're supposed to be doing. Although obviously, celebrities use Photoshop all the time, don't they? And they put stuff out on Instagram, and we rerun it. The media reruns that. Although it's got to be said, that's often a lot more professional than what you've just seen come out from Kensington Palace. And that's why there's a lot of people who genuinely think that is what Madonna now looks like. Now, Mike says you'd have thought if they're going to tart up the image, they'd have put a wedding ring on her. Other questions, of course, being asked. So this is not the first time that the royals have had sort of Photoshop allegations. There was another official picture of the family, I think it was late last year, which appeared to have one of William's feet missing. A child's hand wasn't quite doing what it should. And again, it looks slightly a little bit just off in a few places. And you'd think as well, because part of the reason for these pictures being issued is to quell speculation about Kate's health since she's had abdominal surgery and has retired sort of away from public life for a little bit while she recovers. And that's led to loads of horrible, unpleasant speculation online. Most of it completely bonkers, it's got to be said. And this kind of picture is a way of issuing kind of, the palace is, no, everything's fine. We're all healthy and well. Look how great everything is. Shut up, everybody. But actually, this has raised more questions than answers. Why would the palace, just with your journalist hat on for a bit, why would the palace do this? It's so obvious, and it's just made the story exactly what they didn't want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is a complete disaster. I mean, like you say, I think it's, and the way it's been handled as well has been absolutely horrendous, because they've allowed, sort of when the questions started emerging sort of yesterday afternoon, last night, you would have expected then, if they wanted to try and knock this on the head, for there to have been a statement at that point from the palace, just saying, we made some cosmetic changes, or they really need to go into detail now and explain what's going on, because obviously this has been done at a time when the family is facing some horrendous internet conspiracy theories, and this has clearly been put out with an intention of kind of knocking that on the head, and has achieved the exact opposite, because once one thing gets spotted, then obviously everyone's going to start asking what else has. And I mean, my suspicion is that kind of a lot of the changes were made with the intention of being fairly innocuous.
Yeah,
but it's snowballed into something that really the palace, in a direction that the palace really doesn't want it to have gone in, and they've thus far failed to tackle this head on by explaining what's happened. I mean, now I think if they've merged several images, I think if they want to, if they want to try and address this, they need to really issue what these images were and how they've been merged together.
Wow, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? If they started showing actually what the reality was there, and sort of telling something, perhaps explaining a little bit why this happened, because this isn't just about tabloids and the media having to go to the royal family. We've got the world's most respected photo agencies here, which supplied this, whose own reputations would be under attack if they didn't withdraw them. I mean, you've got organisations like the Associated Press, which put out a statement saying on closer inspection, it appears the source has manipulated the image. In other words, the royal family has manipulated the truth. Now, it's not the first time in history that's happened, and it's certainly not the first time with William and Kate and the modern royal family either. He's got a very understandable, I think most people would think, desire to control the image of his family and to limit the public scrutiny that his wife and his children are subject to. And considering his background, it's absolutely fair enough, isn't it? I don't think anyone would question that. But Julianne on Twitter is talking about control freakery. And it's well known that William's sort of attitude to this is very, very hands-on. This isn't something that would have happened without his approval. He would have seen those shots. He would have approved those shots. And he would have said those shots have to go out. Now, he might not be an expert photographer. Apparently, he took this photo, or one of them, whichever was used. But he will have okayed all this to go out. So he will be aware that that's not the original photo. He has okayed it for publication. He has okayed fooling and manipulating some of the world's most respected photo agencies and photojournalists who he relies on to get his message across about other things all the time. Dave says, was this just an attempt to make an average photo better or something more sinister? It could be either, Dave. We actually don't know. But it's the fact that there's been this manipulation and an attempt to cover it up. I suppose, Dave, if they'd said, look, when they put the photo out, a composite image, right? So you've got 3 small children and someone who's not on the best of health, and you've said it's a composite image because not everyone was looking at the camera at the same time. It's a chaotic photo shoot. Everyone would go, fair enough.
If it was, this does all seem very strange because if it was a digitally taken image, if you've got a group, it's only 4 people. It's not like you're taking a picture of a sort of lineup of footballers, or you're taking a picture at a wedding or something like that, where you've got sort of 20, 25 people. The children aren't toddlers. There's no, you're not trying to take a picture of any animals or anything like that. They're kind of prone to looking in another direction. You'd think 4 people, all of their age, can simultaneously look at a camera at the same time if you take enough shots.
Yeah.
And then you would expect in a situation like that, certainly for family viewers, you'd kind of expect them, for family images, you'd expect them to kind of choose the best one from that. But the issue is they've deliberately sent out a misleading picture, which may not have been done for sinister reasons. We just don't know. But because they've done it, this obviously raises the questions about kind of, why have they done this? Why is, there was clearly a deliberate attempt to mislead. Albeit may have been innocuous, but this does raise a lot of questions. And like you say, if they're putting these things out that sort of they're expecting sort of picture agencies, newspapers to take on trust, and now that trust has been found to have been breached, it does raise some questions. So this is where you'd expect the Kensington Palace operation to be sort of very visible, very very clear on what's happened.
Yeah. So what do you think, everybody? Do you think this matters? Do you think this is just it's a storm in a teacup and people need to calm down? Or do you think there's something a little bit more questionable going on here, regardless of what the picture may or may not be hiding? It's the fact that a future head of state is intentionally misleading, which I think is going to be of concern to many people. Obviously, every time there's a royal photo issued of anything, or every time they walk down the street, all right, there are people who are paid to go out and speculate on who's doing what and the metaphysical meanings of what colour shoes they're wearing, right, for hours at a time. I find it incredibly boring. And we would have exactly that on this kind of shot, on the fact that Kate's not wearing her wedding ring and engagement ring as she usually does. George has got his fingers crossed, stuff like that. If you've had major abdominal surgery, you do have your jewelry taken away from you until your body all swells up afterwards. It's entirely possible as well, considering the size of that goddamn ring that she wears. She doesn't wear it every day because it can probably get snagged on stuff, and you want to keep it for special, maybe, who knows. She doesn't have to. Some of that stuff may be completely innocuous, but it's the manipulation of things which seems to be odd. Mike says Kensington Palace have refused to comment, which doesn't help their image, as it were. No, it doesn't, Mike. It also implies that they're having a bit of a head in the sand moment. So if Prince William wanted this photo, is the one that was released, a press officer who knows their stuff should be able to look at that. And once you've seen any of this stuff, it's really glaringly obvious, and say, yeah, Your Highness, we can't issue that one. It's a bit of a mess. We need to go again on the Photoshop at least. Or can we have a look at the originals and let's start again with something, do it better. So someone has not been able to tell him, that's not a good idea, sir. We shouldn't do that. He's not listening to advice if he's getting the advice. The photo obviously isn't perfect in some regard. Liz 3399, possibly not her real name, says they should have just released an old photo of her with the kids instead of this overly photoshopped one. Take something that's just more candid as well. Don't ask them all to stare at the camera and look like they've just inhaled some crack. Just ask them to sort of look at their mum. Something that's easier to take the shot of, perhaps, would also be helpful. And then it doesn't matter if they're blinking, does it? Stuff like that. Now, part of the reason for all this is that This isn't the first time that the royals have had these Photoshop allegations, as we've said. It just kind of tends to raise more questions than answers. And they wanted to settle all this unpleasant internet gossip we've had about Kate's health. William's recent cancellation of a public appearance about 45 minutes before it was due to start. They've done it so badly, there's actually more speculation. And William is due to attend a Commonwealth event today. And all eyes are going to be on him for entirely different reasons. Now, it's been said several times, Dave, he's a bit of a control freak about his family are perceived. Do you think maybe that's just gone a bit too far? And he's understandably wants to take control of that process, but maybe it's blinded him a bit to how the public are actually going to react to this. Because even the non-royal lunatic public are going to think, you can't do that. Yeah,
well, potentially. I mean, I think this is one of the big arguments about the royal family. I mean, the sort of you get these people by birth, by sort of virtue of who their parents are, whose every aspect of their lives is, sort of open for public scrutiny in a way that must be really difficult to try and handle on a day-to-day. When you're Prince William and Kate, and you are releasing periodic pictures of your children and wanting them to sort of be in the limelight because of their roles, but also not wanting to sort of impose too much on their personal privacy. It's a really difficult balance to try and strike. And you think, when they're making conscious images about what they're going to release, of course they're going to try and show things in the brightest light. And I think the wider public recognise it. I mean, I think the issue around this is just that we now know that we've been shown something that isn't real for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's also been done so badly. They seem to care so little that you might know. Not everyone's impassioned about this. On Twitter, John says, this is not news. It's irrelevant. Literally, it's new, John, therefore it's news. Lynn Jo says, I'm sick of these horrible people trying to make trouble. I think she's talking about us. Just enjoy the photo. If we're horrible people, Lynn, then trust me, we're enjoying the photo because it's causing all this kerfuffle. If we're not horrible people, then we're just having a sensible discussion. Andy said, I couldn't care less about the royals, but I will stand up for the point of view that editing is an essential part of the photographic process, and like all elements of photography, some good, some bad, some need practice. Obviously the photoshopper on this one needs a lot of practice. Doreen says she's not wearing her wedding ring and there are leaves on the trees, so the photo isn't recent. It could be that the thing behind her is freshly in bud. There's a few things in leaf in my garden. I can't quite see what kind of tree it is. They do seem to be wrapped up relatively warm and the children are kind of the right age. So I don't think it was taken like last summer. I don't think it's that much of a conspiracy, Doreen. But it does seem to be that, there's obviously people are going to be split. Doesn't matter if it's edited. Like we said, Dave, I mean, the thing to do with this, if you're at the palace now, really, is to just issue those images unedited. And then we can see, well, look, all you've done is you've moved Charlotte's arm a bit because it was in the middle of her mum's face. Fair enough. No one would care.
Well, I think another issue as well going forward is how this is going to impact on their relationship with the wider press and with the picture agencies, who ultimately they are going to be reliant on to spread these images. I mean, certainly everything they release from now on is going to have a higher degree of scrutiny and perhaps will take longer to issue because people will be checking it for issues like this.
Now, Mac on Twitter says, typical Daily Mirror anti-monarchist rant. It's a family photo in capital letters. Still, it's making headline news. So, of course, jump on the bandwagon, earn your wages while they enjoy their privacy. They've literally got less privacy this morning, Mac, than they did before they issued this photo. And it's because of the photo that they've issued. They've actually got, in trying to control the scrutiny, they've got more scrutiny. It's madness in a way. You need to employ Madonna's Photoshop bloke because they're obviously top of their game, and this one is still learning. So, of course, you've got the media reaction, Dave. There'll be even more distrust now between Palace and the press. More scrutiny, not less of it. Talk about why Kate's not wearing her rings. We saw from Doreen there, various conspiracy theories starting to come out. Constitutionally, though, with your sort of political hat on, has a line been crossed here, or are we edging up perhaps to that line? One where you've got, a potential head of state who is maybe lying about something, innocent or otherwise, to his people. And it's not a privacy thing because this is a photo he's issued in a way. It's not like he's saying it's none of your business. He's saying, here you are, you can have this. And it's not the truth.
No, exactly. I mean, I think this is where it's such a nuanced issue because, you do expect the standards of in public life. I mean, this is our future head of state, and potentially another head of state in the another future head of state in the picture as well. There are certain standards that the British public should be able to expect. People, as you say, this is an image that they themselves have put into the public domain to give an impression of their life as a family. And, you do expect honesty within that. And in this case, it's very obviously been shown not to be the case. That's not to say that you don't expect a sort of flattering image to be issued. But yeah, I think in this one, it is going to raise some questions because a decision has been made to very, to very deliberately put an image that's been manipulated into the public domain. And even if it was done for innocent reasons, that does raise questions about where the acceptable line lies.
Yeah, and there's a way of issuing your photographs that make yourself look good. Meghan and Harry do it all the time. I don't think they're using quite so much Photoshop, and if they are, they're using it much more wisely and a bit more professionally. And they don't have this kind of kerfuffle as a result. They do get blamed for, manipulating their image, I suppose, by issuing that photograph, but the photograph itself is the truth of that moment in time. Trudy says they stated Kate would be out of action till Easter. I'm thinking she's still not well, but because of all the speculation, they felt they had to put something out so that all seems normal. Kate's been seen out and about. She's been in Windsor. She's not like she's in a coma or something. And we've just got all this talk now about things that, if she wants her privacy and she wants to get well, she really shouldn't be exposed to. And if William is caring for her in the way that he should have just put out a sensible photo, kill this dead, all this speculation and silliness, and let her get back to getting well again, if that's what's happening. A no comment from the palace is not going to wash it, because it's only going to make things more stressful for all of them, I would have thought. So as Dave Burke says, Your Highness, if you're listening, please issue the actual photos that were taken. Tell us that it was all very innocent, and everyone can shut up and move on to other more important things, such as a May election. Right. Thank you, everybody, for taking us through all that.